Welcome to Playful Beginnings, a podcast about the magic of play therapy for therapists, students, and anyone interested. In our podcast, we'll explore the deeper understanding of play therapy and the skills we use when working with children.
We hope to help you understand the why behind what we do and how it helps kids heal and grow. I'm Dr. Christy Opiola, a working play therapist and university professor in North Carolina.
I'm Dr. Maggie Parker, a play therapist and professor in DC. Good morning, Christy.
Morning, Maggie. Happy holidays.
It's happening. I thought
know,
that this week would be so long.
I know, we should have worn red and green today.
We should have, yeah.
Or I have blue on for Hanukkah.
Oh yeah, we've been celebrating Hanukkah at our house. So that's been fun. Very confusing for other people. They're like, "You're Jewish?" And we're like, "Well,
Our
no."
kids went to a Jewish preschool, so
They went to a Jewish preschool. Their great grandfather was Jewish and experienced a lot of discrimination and letters from the KKK living in Mississippi. And so that was an important part. My husband, my mother-in-law was raised Episcopalian and my husband was raised Episcopalian, but it just felt important for our kids to know their cultural history. Yeah. So I say the prayers and I do not do it accurately. And you know what's been really great? Aaron Turley, a play therapist who we know from our doctoral program, we celebrated Hanukkah together one year over Zoom.
I love that.
It was lovely.
Shout out to Erin.
Yeah, she's doing really well.
She is.
She's doing really well. So congratulations, Erin. You're in our thoughts often. So
but also just, really helping you navigate, kind of the unfamiliar or, how do we incorporate this with integrity? How do we incorporate this stuff thoughtfully with intention? It's an important thing. It's not just a willy-nilly, but it is part of your husband's family's background. And I do think that's important to be mindful of.
Yeah, I don't want it to be flippant or culturally appropriative in any way. But yeah, it's nice when we tell the story. Anyways, we're going off on a tangent.
Well, we're talking about this because we want to talk about holidays through children's eyes and how do we help them manage holidays, because this is a stressful time both for adults and kids. And so that's why this is being brought up. And I also think as a play therapist, there's this, we have to navigate some of this as a play therapist because we're going to have breaks in relationship with kids because a lot of families take vacations or they're doing a lot of family laden events during this time. And so all of that, right? It changes routines, it changes the world feels a little less predictable for kids, and the pressure of the holidays is here. So there's excitement around it. We also sometimes have this idealistic view of holidays, and kids think they're going to get a lot, and every family has different circumstances. And with the economy being tight and other stuff, it may not live up to previous holidays. So how do we help kids navigate?
Yeah.
It's stressful and, a joyous time of the year.
Create magic while also recognizing the capitalistic nature of this and how do you separate. And I think that can be really hard too for parents. Hey, this is about more than getting presents. This is an experience. This is about being together. This is about caring for each other. And I think that sometimes causes a lot of stress when I think behind the scenes, there's so much stress on adults, whether it be teachers, play therapists, parents. It's the end of the semester for teachers. So you're having to get all this stuff done and pack it in for a group of kids who's over it and ready to go play. And then as parents you still have a job, but then you're creating holiday magic. And as a play therapist, you're also doing those things, managing shifting schedules and potentially higher. And through all of this is stressful kids or kids who are stressed.
Yeah.
I want to reframe that. Let's not, because it's hard for them. And we've talked a lot about how predictability is so helpful and important. And all of a sudden, it's not predictable. Even if you think about the last week of school, usually in elementary schools, it's Spirit Week or, Silly Topper Day. Then they have
they're watching a movie and they're doing this and
they have a test and then they have a party where their parents are coming and it's a lot of stress on them. And then all of a sudden they're out of school.
Yeah. And then there's a big break, right? And
2 weeks off.
School might be a really predictable time for kids. And then they have this large break. I also think, it's a time we get together with family, and family time can be stressful for families. It's not always
Right.
fun, and the other thing I want to say is in all of this as a play therapist, you might not have the same experiences as the kids you are servicing, right? What you view the holidays may look very different for the clientele that we work with. And so it does create all these kind of little conundrums along the way that I think it's an important topic that we are speaking about.
Yeah.
Um, and that, from an ethical standpoint, we also aren't putting our views on kids,
Yeah.
or what we believe in. So be mindful of, I may be Christian and therefore I may wish a happy holidays, or if I'm Jewish, I'm saying happy Hanukkah, right? But the families that I work with may not have that same viewpoint or value. They may want to say Merry Christmas, and when I say happy holidays, it doesn't feel the same to them. And so how do we navigate that as a play therapist?
It's
It's
really,
hard.
and I think it's also important, a thing that I'm experiencing for myself and I haven't really thought about for my own kids is the sensory input of all of it,
Oh
right?
God.
There's music everywhere. And I feel the holidays threw up all over my house. Everything feels tighter.
Glitter everywhere.
There's lights everywhere, right? There's lights, there's music, things are moving. There's a lot more stuff present. And
Mhm.
that can be really overwhelming, especially for our kids that struggle with sensory overload. And
Yeah.
so recognizing that, plus, I think also something we don't talk about much because it's not our area of expertise. My cats are going nuts, but nutrition, right? There's a lot more sweets around that you're eating at different times, that, it's a lot of snacking or noshing, and it just can feel really disorienting for kids sometimes. I don't think we think about the lights, the music,
Yeah.
the forced togetherness at times. We're getting in the car, we're going to go look at lights. It's like, I don't want to look at lights.
After a long day of all these changes and, and they're on the crash after a sugar load and all this other
Right.
stuff.
And so, how do our expectations match up with their developmental capacity and their personal capacity? So, I think it's so cool. At school, they have calm down corners. Is there a space where your kids can go? We have a hand signal in our family that if the kids feel overwhelmed in a situation, they can just come do the hand signal, and we can go upstairs and separate for a little bit and calm down. And I think also when getting gifts, if they're disappointed, we're like,
Yep.
stop, say thank you, be happy. And they're like, but I'm being genuine right now. And this is the ugliest Christmas sweater I've ever seen. And you're like,
It reminds me of I don't know if you've seen the movie A Christmas Story, where Ralphie's aunt sends that. I think it's adorable, but I'm sure to a little boy, it's not adorable, that little bunny outfit, right? And it's just, oh man, how do you respond to how are your expectations from kids to respond to this?
well, and
Um,
even, sorry, we were going looking for a Christmas tree the other day. And it was something that this is so important to Lee, and he loves it. And he wants to look at every single one. But we had spent too much time at a friend's house, and both the kids were tired and had basketball games. They were both in their basketball uniforms, meaning shorts. It's 30 degrees outside. It's dark. They haven't eaten. It's 5 o'clock. They're hungry. I was like, honey, I know that this is magical for you. And this tree is just fine. Let's go. And he was like, you're not wrong. I hear you. Okay,
and
thank
this
you.
may not be the tree I want.
Yes. And so we had the conversation, and then I repaired that relationship with him because I was like, I know this was really magical for you. And I kind of put the kibosh on it. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And he was like, no, it's fine. But also thinking about it from those perspectives, this is for us and not necessarily for them. And so helping manage those is helpful, I think, for parents and play therapists who are working with kids at this time.
Working with parents, right? Helping parents as maybe parents' expectations, during the holidays shift a little bit, right? How do we help them? I'm really thinking of this from a child-centered lens, right? Where we think behavior is communication. How do we help them look at what is my child trying to tell me right now instead of, right,
What is my
trying
child?
to manage the behavior through threats, through bribery, or just giving up, right? Let's figure out what's going on for the kiddos here so that we can better support them along the way. I think and important. And as you've been talking, that's what's been coming up in my head, Maggie, is this idea of, oh, kids are trying to communicate to us. Our partners are trying to communicate to us, right? Teachers are trying to communicate with us. Parents are trying to communicate with us. All of those things. And they're communicating through behavior typically. And so let's try to get to the root of what is going on here.
And some of that might be meltdowns.
Yeah.
Some of it might be regression or defiance or withdrawal. And so really working, and I think
Or perfectionism, right? Don't forget
perfectionism.
also for some of the holidays that we celebrate, right? We do these, we kind of put out this idea of, you know, everything's getting reported back to someone, or you have to behave a certain
Oh,
way. And so therefore kids are going to try to be perfect and therefore struggle internally without being able to put it out. Or because they are being so perfect, we reward them. So what message do we send them at that time without looking at why they're seeking perfection in those moments?
that's such a great point. You might get coal. Like, watch out, you're going to get coal in your stocking or whatever. We do that. It's this
Or I'm going to
external.
report this back to the thing that always stands out to me is elf on the shelf, right? Your elf is watching, right? Which gives kids no permission to be kids,
Right.
right? Because kids are part of their process of growing up is learning emotional regulation, learning, self-control, learning how to manage difficult relationships, learning how, and part of learning that is by trial and error, and we have to give them a chance to try trial and error without shaming, blaming, right, manipulating, all of those things. So
And so some of it is as the adult really taking a deep breath and thinking, okay, what are they communicating with me in this moment? What are they sharing? How can I help stay calm? How can I connect and understand and reflect that I understand? Part of it is being, like we've talked about, is really transparent and narrating what's going on
yeah,
and saying you're really frustrated, you're feeling really overwhelmed, reflecting those feelings, helping them feel seen, because they're trying to communicate those things with you. It's just they're doing it in the way that they know how. And that's okay. It's just, okay, so how can we do this? And so really trying to hone in on some of those self-regulation skills and that for yourself, and then reflecting back for your kids. And I think when there are changes in routine, sharing what those changes are,
yeah. Just
like this is what we're going to
even
do.
putting a calendar up. Okay, this is what today is going to look like. For our teachers, laying out the day, our day is different today. Let's look at it, and then when kids are struggling, letting them sharing your understanding. This is hard. You're used to being in math right now. We aren't doing math today. For parents, right? Communicating, I can see you're really struggling, right? We've done a lot today. You're tired, you're hungry, you're giving me all these cues because we just keep going, and looking for the perfect Christmas tree. And all you want is a hot dog. That's it, right? Let's
Yeah.
figure out how we can feed your belly, right? And I do want to say it's not about not correcting bad behavior. It's just
Right.
that's where we don't want to start, right? They need to feel heard and understood. They need a level of, from a child-centered, we would say unconditional positive regard here, right? Which really means they need a level of acceptance and understanding from us. And then, not in the moment, but at a time where everyone is in regulation, to go back and maybe do their correction then.
Yeah. And I think there are opportunities too to help bring kids in to some of the celebration. So is there a type of cookie you want to make? Or is there something that you want to do special for Hanukkah? What are and involving them and letting them take the lead, because then they have some ownership of it. They feel confident. It builds them into the traditions can be really comforting and helpful, and you can introduce new traditions and not letting go of that unstructured play, like
Mhm.
still letting them have that time to play and engage. It can be so easy because also a lot of times parents are still working even though kids are out of school. So like, how can you limit the amount of screen time, because that's the easiest babysitter ever, right? How can you allow them the opportunity to do what is important for them and what they need to process, which is unstructured play.
Yeah, which I think is important. I also think we need moments of just slowing down. I was talking to my neighbor this morning, and neither one of us have kids, right? But she's like, I just haven't been home. I think back about the last week and I have not had one evening at home. I'm ready for the holidays to be over. And if we have, as adults, are feeling that way, can you imagine having kids where, there's performances, there's parties, there's babysitters, there's, all these things. So I think also thinking about, connecting as a family, slowing down, making you and me time in the schedule at low stakes. Like you and me time are not making Christmas cookies sometimes, right? Because you want them to look a certain way or there's a purpose to them. But you and me time might be letting the child take the lead on some type of play activity that they want to play with.
Right.
Right? Or to read books together, or just to sit and watch a Christmas movie with hot chocolate, or whatever it might be. And I say Christmas movies because they're all over the TV. So if you don't celebrate Christmas, I'm not trying to separate holidays here. I was just acknowledging that there's a lot of them on TV right now. And so kids may be drawn, to watching Elf for the 1500th time. Or in our family, in my family of origin and growing up, we love the movie A Christmas Story. And it plays non-stop on Christmas Eve on TNT if anyone's interested, or TBS, from sunup until midnight. And we would just watch it over and over, driving my mother crazy. She hates that movie, but it drove her absolutely crazy. And we would be like, wait, this is the best part. No, we would all have a different best part, right? Trying to get her attention. But that was really important, for us as kids. I also think because it was on repeat, we didn't have to think a lot. It was actually downtime.
It
Sorry.
can feel comforting because you know it's predictable.
It's predictable. There wasn't a lot we had to put out. It made us laugh. It also connected my siblings and I, right? It was something we shared together. So it was relational with my siblings, not with my mom, but with my siblings. I don't think my mom's ever sat down and watched the whole movie,
But it
which
is.
is okay.
I think that's part of it is just really slowing down, naming
Mhm.
the feelings without trying to fix it. Because we are
Yep.
having those feelings too. And so being honest with ourselves, that's okay. That there doesn't have to be perfectionism, right?
Yes.
You get to decide as a family or as a unit what that looks like for you and each other and involving them in that. And, allowing for that frustration and imperfection with your children and within yourself. I mean, I think there was
Yeah.
one point when I had a meltdown because I was preparing for everything. It was just so overwhelming. I was just sobbing. And my kids walked in and I was like, well, hi.
Right? Yeah.
Mommy's really overwhelmed. I'm really overwhelmed. So I'm having a lot of big feelings and I'm taking deep breaths and I'm letting myself cry. And so narrating it and giving yourself space, you know, to have those feelings, but then also providing your children in in the play therapy room and the classroom, they might be a lot more dysregulated. And so just
Yeah.
kind of recognizing that as well.
And I think protecting that unstructured playtime
Yeah.
as an adult, right? Allowing, I think as the play therapist, really being mindful to hold to that child-led unstructured time where they may be active or they may not. I was doing a consultation the other day and the therapist said the kid fell asleep, right? And what do I do in this moment? And it's, well, I think there's layers to that. And now that I think back, are the holidays playing a role in this kiddo falling asleep in the playroom, right? And so, what was the purpose of the sleep? What was, like, there's so many things we have to be thoughtful of in how we might guide or respond to that in the playroom. The other thing I was thinking about as you were talking, Maggie, is, as the adults in the relationship, we're also overstimulated, and overwhelmed, but how do we stay in regulation? Because we want to respond in a regulated space, right? We are probably more apt to being able to do that than our kids may be,
Yeah.
right? Because it's a growing skill for them. So how do we stay? What do we need in these moments to stay cool, calm, collected, regulated, right? And being able to respond instead of react.
Yeah.
And I think, as you've mentioned before, if you do react, right, how do you repair in those moments? You need to be able to hold on to the repair component of it to make sure that, you're conveying the message about how important this relationship is. Otherwise, kids are left questioning what's happening. That's both for play therapists, parents, teachers, all of those things, which is not an easy task to do.
No, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if it's hard for us, it's really hard for them.
Yeah.
And so remembering. So yeah, I think the probably the two biggest takeaways I think would trust their capacity to move
Mhm.
through those big emotions and sit with them in it. And really that from a child-centered perspective, it's less about behavior or activities and more just about how can you connect together.
Yeah. And I would also say we don't need a perfect holiday.
Right.
I would say the connection is more important and giving, opportunities to kids to help kind of guide what the holidays look like,
Yeah,
instead of it always being adult driven.
1,000%.
So, yeah.
Well, I hope this was helpful for our listeners.
It was kind of a crash. We ran through that quickly, but we wanted to make sure we touched base about holidays, as this can be a really fun and joyous time, but it can also be incredibly stressful. I don't know how many parents I talk to that they are looking forward to this break and they're a little anxious about this break. And so,
Yeah,
uh, helping to support them as well.
yeah. Well, we hope everyone has a happy holiday season and please like and subscribe. Email us if you have questions or things you want us to touch on. And as
Yeah.
always, it's
So playtherapyspace.com.
thank you, Christy.
Thanks, Maggie. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.